Hello and welcome to Movies You Missed podcast. I'm Vee.
And I'm John.
And we are two industry veterans who are here to recommend movies to you without spoiling them.
No spoilers here.
How you doing today, John?
Doing pretty good. Excited to talk about both of these movies. I haven't seen my pick in several years, so it was great revisiting it.
Yes, I hadn't seen your pick in a handful of years either, so I was feeling the same when you chose it for this week's episode.
There were so many different routes I could have gone, especially with your pick, but for whatever reason, this one just felt right.
I agree. I think they are the perfect pairing.
Definitely.
And we'll get into which movies we picked this week in a little bit, but our topic for this week's episode is buddy cop comedies. And that is a genre we actually haven't done in about 6 months. The last time we did it, it was back in September of last year when I chose The Heat and you chose Hot Fuzz.
Damn, yeah, it has been a while then.
Yeah, episode 125.
Wow, that was a good fun episode.
That was a good fun episode. I love both of those movies so much.
Can't go wrong with either of them.
Yes, and that's the same for these movies this week too.
I agree. Like I said, haven't seen mine in a while. Actually hadn't seen yours in several years either, so it was great to revisit both of these and have a lot of really hearty laughs.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. And after our conversation in last week's episode about the mid-year review, I've gotten more and more excited about that too, so I'm really looking forward to that coming up in a couple months.
As am I. I think that's going to be a lot of fun because we mentioned just last episode that 2025 has started out really well.
It really has, and I'm also looking forward to a couple of special episodes we have in the coming months because Mother's Day is coming up, Father's Day is coming up, and we have a special guest who will be joining us next month too.
That is very true. A lot of good stuff coming up in the future here at Movies You Miss podcast.
There are, and there are also a lot of good movies being released in the coming months too. Well, at least we hope. We're excited about them since we've seen their trailers, so time will tell on that one. So let's talk about the new movies we've seen in theaters or on streaming this week.
Let's do it.
And I believe you saw 2 movies in theaters this week.
I did. I saw 2. I wanted it to be 3, but I was able to go to 2 at least, so I'm very happy about that. I went to go see the new animated feature film, The Day the Earth Blew Up, the new Looney Tunes movie starring Porky Pig and Daffy Duck.
I haven't even heard of this film. That's so crazy. When you texted me about going to the Looney Tunes movie, I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about?
Yep, I saw the poster for this about 3 months ago at one of the Regals here in town, and I honestly thought it was one of those just fake posters.
Yeah.
And then one day I saw a trailer for it, and I was like, oh shit, this is actually real. So I went and saw it opening day, and for the hour and a half that it is, there's a lot of solid laughs. It's very entertaining. It does definitely dip its toes into OG Looney Tunes stuff, so if you like that kind of thing, check it out. It's worth seeing. I had a lot of good times with it. The audience seemed to really like it as well.
Good.
Yes, and then after that, a few days later, last night actually, I went and saw the new Jack Quaid Amber Mid-Thunder film Novocaine that you got to see early.
Yes. What'd you think?
Yeah. I didn't like it. I thought it was really, really bad.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, you shouldn't believe me because I actually had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. Jack Quaid was awesome. Mid-Thunder was great. It was a lot more brutal than I thought it was going to get, but it makes sense with that kind of premise. Very, very entertaining flick. I laughed a lot. I thought the fucking soundtrack was badass, too. This is another movie that kind of came out of left field with a soundtrack that was killer. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed Novocaine. I highly recommend giving that one a shot if you like some crazy action, intense hilarity, I guess is how we can put it.
I think that's a great description, and I loved all the scenes inside the house in particular.
Yes.
That was a great part of the movie, too.
The booby-trapped house was awesome.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I actually think I want to go see it again. I think I'm going to go with my sister this week.
I would see this one again for sure.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Me too. And V, you said you saw one thing, so let's hear what you saw over the last week.
Yes, on opening night last weekend, I went and saw the new Steven Soderbergh spy thriller called Black Bag. This is the first movie of the year that is on my can't-miss list.
Ooh, alrighty. I look forward to it.
Loved this movie from beginning to end. Michael Fassbender is so good at being a spy. Cate Blanchett is a goddess who just floats into every scene and owns it. Her costumes were incredible. She looks amazing too. I loved the set decoration on this film. Their apartment is really cool. And I love the
Awesome.
storyline. Ray J. John Page from the first season of Bridgerton is in it. So is Pierce Brosnan. There are a lot of other supporting actors who you will recognize who are very good. I love this movie so much. I highly recommend it. It's not really brutal. It's not action-oriented either. It's certainly classified as a spy thriller. And
Sweet.
every single minute of this movie is good. I highly, highly recommend it.
That was going to be my third movie that I wanted to see this weekend, but I was not able to make it happen. So hopefully I can give it a shot before next week.
Yes, I hope you can too, so then we can talk about it. Again, that's called Black Bag. It just opened last weekend. I'm going to recommend it to every single one of my sisters and my mother because it's not super bloody. I think they'd all really enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're so happy to discuss new movies we've seen in theaters or on streaming to give you guys an idea of whether or not you should go out and see them. And if there are any new films coming out in the next couple weeks or couple months that you want to review on before you go see it, go ahead and send us a message. Tell us which movies you're really eager for, or you're really curious whether or not we'll think they're good. Go ahead and send us a message either on social media or at our email. We'll be happy to watch them for you and let you know what we think.
Yeah, please do. Love when that happens.
Well, I think it's time to jump into the movies for this week's episode.
I like that idea.
All right, well, since this is an odd episode, I believe you go first.
All right, let's jump into it. This film is set in 1977. This film stars two actors that I really, fingers crossed, hope Russell Crowe's wish comes true and we get a sequel to this movie, because this is Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling in a film written by Shane Black and Anthony Bagarazzi, directed by Shane Black. This is The Nice Guys.
A movie I'd only seen once before this week.
I had actually only seen this movie one time before as well, like I mentioned last week. This film came out in May of 2016. I was living in Hollywood, and it came up on streaming on HBO or Cinemax, one of the two that I was paying for at the time. And I gave it a shot, and I had a really good time with it. I remember also thinking it was definitely a lot more fucked up than I thought it was going to be. It's I only say that because there's a young girl in the movie that gets involved in a lot of scenarios that I don't think a lot of young girls would normally get involved in.
Not appropriate.
Especially, definitely not appropriate, especially if that young girl is the daughter of Holland March, played by Ryan Gosling, who is a complete shit-faced drunk private detective. He is a widow, and his young daughter actually is a lot smarter than he is, and we learn that throughout the movie in a progression of her character. And she's played by Anjori Rice. If I pronounce your name incorrectly, I do apologize. I hate when that happens. Ryan Gosling's name is very easy to pronounce, so I didn't get that one incorrect. So
It's a goose.
we meet Holland as he gets a phone call one morning to meet up with an older woman who is trying to locate her granddaughter. This girl's name is Amelia, and she's played by Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, she is.
A very young Margaret Qualley, which is pretty awesome. She was actually 22 at the production of this movie. We all, well, if you don't know who Margaret Qualley is by name, she was just in The Substance. She's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's making her rise through the ranks of Hollywood right now, and she's Andie MacDowell's daughter, which I did not know.
Oh my god, I had no idea.
Same. They really don't look very
that's
much
what I was
alike.
going to say too. They don't look alike at all, but they're both beautiful.
They are, yes. And I am definitely becoming a fan of Margaret Qualley. I loved her character, as small as it was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Thought she was great in The Substance, and she's very good in this movie, which with what little screen time she has. And at the beginning of this film, other than meeting Holland March, we also meet Jackson Healy, played by Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe, like we mentioned just a couple weeks ago with LA Confidential, wanted a sequel to LA Confidential and wants a sequel to The Nice Guys. And strangely and coincidentally enough, LA Confidential takes place 20 years before The Nice Guys is set. So there is a strange little universe where people are thinking that this is actually somewhat of a sequel to LA Confidential because he plays a very similar character. And after Holland takes this job from this older woman to go and find Amelia, Jackson also gets word that Amelia is being looked for as well. So what happens? Jackson ends up at Holland's place, basically beats the living shit out of Holland, and tells him to stop looking for Amelia. One thing leads to another, and Jackson is now under the gun of two other hitmen, one played awesomely by Keith David, which I completely forgot he was in this movie.
Yes.
And they're coming down on him to also stop looking for Amelia. So something's going on with Amelia. Also, in the beginning of this movie, there's an insane car crash and a porn star dies, and her name is Misty Mountains. Jackson and Holland are now in this whole world of private eye, neo-noir, late 1977, trying to track everybody down, basically, and figure out where Amelia is or why she's missing, figure out what happened with Misty Mountains before this car accident. And for the rest of the movie, we are tagging along with Jackson and Holland, who have decided to band together and track down Amelia, figure out what exactly happened in Misty Mountains, and it leads them to pornography and hard-hitting, muscly men that are just beating the shit out of each other, and Jackson and Holland. A plethora of hysterical moments. This is one of my favorite Ryan Gosling performances. I gotta say, he cracks me up so much in this movie, and that's what I remembered the most, was Ryan Gosling, similar to Gangster Squad, was really what I liked the most about the movie. As great as Russell Crowe is, also, another tie-in to L.A. Confidential, Kim Basinger shows up as Amelia's mother. And Amelia's mother is tied in with the corruption of police. So there's, again, very similarities to L.A. Confidential that are going down in The Nice Guys, which takes place just over 20 years after L.A. Confidential is set. And I think this movie is fantastic. It's very likely going to be in my collection at some point. Not only is the writing sharp as fuck, it is hysterically written. It's very well put together. The costumes are fantastic. The music is great. The cars are gorgeous. It's, again, set in 1977, set in Los Angeles as well. And there's that whole smog thing as like a backstory, which is great. It's like, don't go outside after 6 p.m. So fascinating to just see certain parts of Los Angeles, under the cloud of smog, which I grew up under for like 35 years. So that is The Nice Guys. Great, great time. I think it's like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. It moves right along. There's no boring moments in this movie. It's one hysterical kerfuffle after another, especially with Holland, because he's such a drunk. And it's awesome that his daughter kind of becomes the liaison between Jackson and Holland throughout this movie, because she ends up meeting certain people and gets information out of them that Holland and Jackson couldn't actually pull out of these people. I give this movie a round of applause. Shane Black and his co-writer, Anthony Bagarozzi, did a great job with this movie. Acting is top-notch. It's hilarious. It really does not let up. And this being my second time watching it, I can't understand why I haven't watched it more, because it's such a blast. It's just so much fucking fun. And V, I'm curious what your second or third time was watching The Nice Guys, since you hadn't seen it almost as long as I hadn't.
I really enjoyed my second time around, and since it's been a while, I actually forgot a little bit about it, which is always fun to go into a movie with some fresh eyes. And
Absolutely.
You're right. This movie's really funny. The dialogue is really sharp. It's a crazy story, and I really like how intricate this plot is and how many different characters are involved, because they're all played by really incredible actors, like you said, Keith David. And I'd totally forgotten that Kim Basinger is also in this movie. So when she and Russell Crowe are sharing a couple scenes, I was like, oh my god, they're reunited.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And the funny thing is, yes, this movie is based about 25 years after the events of LA Confidential, and these movies, LA Confidential and The Nice Guys, were filmed about 20 years apart. And so good. They hadn't seen each other in a really long time, on set at least. And so it was really great to have them back together. The clothing is incredible in this film.
Definitely.
I love the soundtrack. I was listening to it on Monday after I had watched the movie.
Awesome.
Because it was so fun. And I'm just so happy you picked this film, because it's one of those movies, we really love them. We just don't go back to them as often as we'd like to.
Right, yes. And this movie came out almost 10 years ago. Next year will be the 10-year anniversary of this movie. Watching it, it feels like it was very recent. Like, it just doesn't seem like it's almost 10 years old. And that could be, everybody in the movie looks great. Nobody looks worn down, if that makes any sense. Like,
Russell Crowe does a little bit.
Well, he was supposed to. He put on a good amount of weight to play Jackson, for sure.
Wow, I would never
whole unshaven thing
want to mess with him. He's such a tank. In real life, Russell Crowe. We talked about this for LA Confidential.
Yep.
Like, I would never want to cross that man.
No, not at all. I completely agree. And one of the funniest scenes for me is when it's when it's Holland's daughter's birthday at the bowling alley, and Jackson finds him in the men's room, and that whole exchange just cracks me the F up. I just love how Holland is on the shitter, and Jackson shows up and opens the door, and he's like, turn around, don't look at me while I'm on the toilet. He's got the gun in his hand. He's just, I can still see you through the mirror, and he's trying to keep the door open, but he can't, and he's got that broken arm because he busts his arm when Jackson tells him to stop looking for Amelia. And that's the scene where they both actually decide to end up working together. Jackson offers him $400 to continually look for Amelia and figure out what's going on with this Misty Mountains porn star.
Which is a great name for a porn star.
It really is. Misty Mountains. Yes. And the kid in the opening scene of this movie that actually finds her dead in the car, he is the young kid from the Insidious movies, which is actually kind of cool to see him in another early movie, because now he's an adult.
He's also the young kid. I know that you hate this film, but a lot of people will recognize him because he's the young brother in Jurassic World.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I agree with you, and there are some fantastic action sequences. There's a car chase that's really cool.
Yes.
The penthouse scene had me rolling. It was so goddamn funny.
So
when they're in the elevator. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was great. I love when Holland is trying to impress that one girl and like flips over the edge and starts rolling down the hill.
Oh my God. That was
such
ridiculous. It's so great. And then Matt Bomer shows up, and he's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a real creepy haircut that I thought was perfect for his character.
Matt Bomer, yes, he shows up with that crazy haircut. He is a hitman, and he's been in a whole bunch of shit. I haven't seen a lot of the work that he's done, but he was in The Magnificent Seven, which I hear is great. He was in White Collar, which my wife very much enjoyed watching, probably because of Matt Bomer. He was in...
he was in all the Magic Mike movies.
Oh, of course he was. Yeah, those are that's a trilogy right there. I love to have never seen that trilogy. Maybe one day I will. I hear they're actually good movies.
The first one's great.
Okay. He was also in the travesty that was Bradley Cooper's Oscar bait movie Maestro.
Oh my God, that's right, he was.
Yeah, very
Thankfully,
forgettable movie.
Not for that long.
Yes, I honestly don't even remember him in that movie very much. I barely remember that movie. And that's okay. And the whole penthouse fight sequence between Jackson and older guy, who actually is played by Keith David, right next to the spa, is amazing.
And then there's also a great sequence in an apartment building that is also just hilarious. The climax of this movie is crazy.
Hell yeah.
I really enjoy this film. Like I said, I'm so glad you picked it.
Well, good. I'm glad that you enjoyed this movie as much as I do, and as much as I did as a revisit. We both got to watch it together, basically, for the second time, which is awesome. It will be in my collection, so anytime you want to come over and watch it, we can absolutely watch it. So let's get into a little bit of the BTS. I don't really have a lot, because a lot of what I was able to read is kind of repeating itself. This was originally proposed as a TV series. And Shane Black and his co-writer were working on it and trying to come up with episodes and figure out a way to actually break this into episodes, and they couldn't figure it out, so they ended up just deciding to make it a feature film, which I think they made the right call. Because if it were a TV series, we very likely would not have gotten Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling for the TV series.
Good
and who
point.
knows what would have happened with it after that. This kind of blew my mind when I was reading about the time frame and the authenticity of the world that they were building for 1977. There's a scene in this movie where Ryan Gosling's at a gas station.
Yes.
And he's sitting in his car behind a line of cars that are trying to get gas. Gas was, if I remember correctly, it said like 68 cents or something like that for regular unleaded.
Well, and this was also during the gas shortage, and that's what they're highlighting.
That's
in the
right,
movie.
yes.
There was an embargo.
Right. Absolutely, yes, you're right. And what's crazy about that whole thing is, so if you had a license plate that ended in an even number, you could fill up on the even days of the week. If you had an odd number at the end of your license plate, you could fill up on the odd day of the week. There were a lot of states, though, that allowed people to fill up on the 31st day of the month if there were a 31st day in that month. So I just thought that was very, very interesting. It would be crazy if that were a thing now, you know. Granted, we don't have a gas shortage. Hopefully we never do. But it would be somewhat fascinating to sit in line for however long.
Well, I'm glad you actually told me that, because I didn't understand what even only meant, that sign at the gas station in the movie. So I'm actually glad that you explained that. But we have experienced this, because remember the toilet paper shortage during COVID?
Oh. How could I forget?
I was
talking about gasoline. I know that the toilet paper shortage.
Yeah, there was
insane.
a line out of Costco a couple weeks ago for eggs. It literally went out the door. So, yeah, I mean, we've experienced that too, just with different commodities.
You're absolutely right. Now, Shane Black, we've discussed one other time here at Movies You Miss Podcast, and I know we will discuss again because a future pick of yours is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
And Lethal Weapon.
Oh, well, there you go. 2 more times coming up in the future.
Well, I need the action Christmas movies for our Christmas episodes.
Oh, yes, that's true. You do. Yeah. I've only seen Lethal Weapon once, so I'm actually excited to revisit that when we get closer to Christmas. Maybe not this year for Christmas, but in the future.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of references in this movie to The Last Boy Scout, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and Iron Man 3 and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Because Shane Black wrote all of those movies.
Yeah, he did.
This film has a lot of nods to a TV show from back in the 70s called The Rockford Files, which stars James Garner, which, V, you have a movie, and I have a movie with James Garner, and our plethora of movies that we've done here at Movies in This Podcast. Mine was Maverick, and yours was?
Support Your Local Sheriff.
There it is. That was a great movie.
Thank you. I'm so glad you liked it. And I actually
A
used
Western that I enjoyed.
I know. I'm so proud. And I actually used to watch the Rockford Files with my grandma.
Oh, very cool. I've never seen it.
James Gardner was hot.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
All right.
It's a little tidbit for you. I'm sure you really appreciate that fact.
All the time. Yeah, please. Yeah, drop it on me always. That's pretty much all the BTS I have for The Nice Guys. If I do buy the physical copy, hopefully there will be more documentaries and more behind-the-scenes information. I just couldn't find a whole lot, and that's okay. You know, a lot of times the movie can speak for itself, which I kind of feel like this is one of those types of movies. It's a great movie, and if you enjoy action comedies that are hard R ratings like V and I do, then you will enjoy this movie. It is streaming on Netflix now. One thing I did want to mention, though, is there is a reference to Abbott and Costello movies. I would say like midpoint through the movie. They end up coming upon a dead body leaning up against a tree, and the way that Ryan Gosling's character Holland reacts to it is a nod back to one of the early Abbott and Costello comedy horrors of when Abbott and Costello met the mummy. And I thought that was great. I love the Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, Wolfman. Those movies are classics and very likely to be in the October arsenal coming up in the future for me.
That's good, because I've actually never seen an Abbott and Costello movie. I've
wow.
only ever seen the skit Who's on First because a couple of classmates of mine back in like 7th grade did the skit during a variety show, and that's the only thing I know about
cool.
Abbott and Costello. I thought the skit was hilarious.
It is absolutely one of the most iconic skits of all time. And there's actually a really sad story behind it, but we'll get into that later on when we do some Abbott and Costello movies.
Okay.
I've been a big fan since I was a kid. My grandfather introduced me to Abbott and Costello. My dad and I used to watch a lot of their shorter projects together. Very, very funny stuff. This film had a $50 million budget.
Yeah, I could see that.
I totally could see that, especially with all of the costumes, locations, practical effects. Yeah, the cars, absolutely. In its opening box office here in the U.S. and in Canada, it pulled in $11.2 million. The domestic box office was $36.2 million, and the gross worldwide only came to $71.2 million.
Aww,
so it
bummer.
didn't do very well. And I think another reason why I never did see this movie in the theaters was because it didn't last very long. And I remember seeing the trailer thinking that looks like a good time, but I never did go see it. And I ended up watching it at home for the first time, and glad that I did. Now I'm glad to revisit it this time around. And like I said, will likely be in my collection of physical media because it's just a great fucking time.
It really is. And it's one of those films that you reference a lot in conversations where you think of Ryan Gosling especially. It's a great role of his. And at the same time, you don't often watch it. And so I'm glad it was on Netflix. I'm glad people can have an opportunity to watch it because they absolutely should.
Completely agree. It is currently streaming on Netflix, but March 31st is the final day that it will be streaming on Netflix. So hopefully another streamer will pick it up, or Netflix will renew its contract with the studio and get it back on as soon as possible. So that is The Nice Guys. I'm glad, V, you and I both had a good time rewatching it. 2016 was a very good year for cinema because the highest grossing film of that year was one of our favorite Star Wars movies, Rogue One.
Yes.
Number 2 was Finding Dory, maybe a future pick of yours.
It's kind of a forgettable sequel, but it isn't terrible.
Agree. No, I'm with you on that. Number 3 was Captain America Civil War. I did not like that movie.
I hate that movie.
Great. Number 4 was The Secret Life of Pets, which I never did finish. I thought that was honestly pretty terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, the live action / let's say the 60% live action, 40% CGI remake of The Jungle Book.
Oh, yes.
Number 6 was Deadpool. Number 7, Zootopia. Number 8, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice.
I never even took the time to learn the whole entire title, which included Dawn of Justice. I just thought it was Batman and Superman. God, I hate that movie.
Yeah, I know a lot of people did. I liked it, but I have only seen it one time. I never saw it again, and I don't hate me for it. Number 9 was Suicide Squad, which I never saw.
That's fine.
Number 10 was Sing, which I also never saw.
I've seen it a couple times. It's cute, and I love the singers in it, including Taron Egerton, because he sings Elton John song, which is pretty cool. Because this was before Rocket Man. But the protagonist of the movie is a total selfish little asshole, and so it's hard to watch, especially as a kid's movie. I'm like, this is not something to aspire to.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never seen. I think there's 3 of them now. I didn't bother with any of them.
I never saw any of the other ones, just the first one.
Great. Number 11 was Moana. Number 12, Fantastic Beasts, Where to Find Them. 13, Doctor Strange. 14, Hidden Figures. 15, Jason Bourne, which was all right.
Oh, that's the one where Matt Damon came back. That's right.
Oh, all right. I think I saw it one time. I enjoyed it from what I remember.
I do not remember that film at all. I've totally seen it. I've forgotten everything about it, including Alicia Vikander's in it. I totally forgot.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Yep.
And so is Tommy Lee Jones. What the hell? I do not remember
I don't even
that
remember
film
him in that movie. Not even at all.
Yeah, oh my God.
Crazy. Number 16 was Star Trek Beyond, which was the third installment of the Captain Kirk franchise, which was okay. It's definitely the weakest of the three.
While I agree, I actually don't think any of them are terrible, even though I know a lot of people shit on the sequels. I wish they would have kept making those films.
Oh, I do too. I have the trilogy. I like them. I just didn't think that Beyond was anything super special. I thought Idris Elba was awesome as the villain, for sure. But overall, it was like, it was fine. It was fine.
It was fine. I mean, they have a really cool motorcycle stunt sequence, and they use a song from the Beastie Boys, so...
That's true, they do.
Pretty cool parts.
Yeah, all right, I'll give you that. Number 27 was the sequel to Independence Day Resurgence. Number 28, the sequel to The Conjuring.
Haven't seen either of those sequels.
All right, well, you're really not missing a whole lot.
Great.
Number 29, a past pick of yours, Arrival.
Awesome.
Number 36, a movie that is now getting a sequel, which will be out, I believe, at some point this year, The Accountant with Ben Affleck.
Yes, I just saw a trailer to it, actually.
Oh, sweet. I have not, but I really liked The Accountant, so I'm excited.
The funny thing is that Ben Affleck is, I can take him neither here nor there, but I'm a huge fan of John Bernthal now. And so I'm more excited about John being in the movie and seeing him than I am about Ben Affleck coming back as The Accountant.
All right. Well, cool. I look forward to it. Number 40, the remake of Pete's Dragon with Bryce Dallas Howard, which was not a terrible remake. Number 44, 10 Cloverfield Lane with John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, an awesome flick that I saw in theaters with my dad.
I think that's on your list in the future, right?
It absolutely is, as is Cloverfield. So yeah, there's the two of them.
Yes, and they're very different movies.
Very, very different movies. Number 46, a past pick of yours, V, Hacksaw Ridge.
Yes.
And the 79th highest grossing film of 2016, my pick this week, of The Nice Guys.
Well, at least it was in the top 100.
Top hundo, yeah. Great movie. Check it out. Like I said, you have till the 31st of March to watch it. Now I'm ready, V, to go back to New York and discuss your pick this week. I'm ready to do my desk pop, and I'm ready to go to Bed Bath & Beyond. Let's get into it.
Oh, the people knowing that this is a buddy cop comedy episode, after that description, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And that is because I picked a movie from 2010 starring Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. This is The Other Guys.
I love the opening of this movie, but we will get into that after you break this down.
This movie opens up with two rock star police detectives, Highsmith and Danson, and they are played by Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock. And
of course they are.
They are the ones who are in a sweet car and go and bust all the drug dealers, and it starts off with a really cool car chase scene through New York City. And
it does.
These two get commendations for what they've done arresting these drug dealers. And then one of the reporters who are asking the questions during this press conference are like, Detectives Highsmith and Danson, you guys just did $12 million worth of damage in New York City for a couple of guys who are holding a quarter ounce of pot. Do you think it's worth it? And it turns out that this is a complete play on the cliche cop trope because this movie is a satire. It makes fun of every single stereotypical idea you have of a cop movie.
Definitely.
This movie is absolutely hysterical from start to finish, and we continue to follow along Highsmith and Danson, who are these amazing cops that everybody thinks are great at least, and they get all the glory and they get all the good cases, until about 6 minutes into the movie where they think they're so invincible because of all of these scraps they've gotten themselves out of that they decide to chase these bad guys off a roof, and they aim for the bushes.
There goes my hero.
And so Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock, who usually are these big movie stars who are going to own this movie, are gone within the first couple minutes of it.
I think that is what sold me on the movie, truthfully.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. I was sitting... I'll tell you about it later after you break it down.
No, please, go for it.
Okay, I mentioned last week that my sister had texted me. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and she was like, I just watched The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. I know you don't like Will Ferrell very much, but I think you'll really like this movie. So I happened to be at Best Buy in Union Square in Manhattan, and I just saw it for $5, and I was like, all right, fine, fuck it. I'll spend $5 on this movie. If it sucks, I can return it. That moment, I was pretty much in, and then it just did not stop from there.
It really
And I
doesn't.
texted my sister right after. I was like, you were right. That movie had me in tears.
Yeah, because it's so hysterical. Once Highsmith and Danson are gone, this precinct really wants to know what are the next cops who are going to fill their shoes, right? And so all these guys are vying for it. Damon Wayans Jr. is in there, and there's a bunch of character actors you guys will totally recognize when you watch this film.
Oh, yes.
And the other two detectives that are in this precinct are Will Ferrell, who plays Detective Gamble, who is actually a forensic accountant.
Yeah.
The biggest Magoo of them all.
Oh, yeah. Perfect use.
And Mark Wahlberg playing Detective Terry Hoyts, who is an amazing cop and knows all the martial arts and really great at investigating things. But unfortunately, he accidentally shot Derek Jeter. And so he's been relegated to a desk, and all of the people of New York hate this guy, right? Because he shot Derek Jeter. They call him the Yankee Clipper, and everybody hates him. And so now he's unfortunately been partnered up with Detective Gamble, and Will Ferrell is the most passive guy you've ever met. He's got the big 80s pervert glasses on. He dresses like a total dork. And all he cares about is all the paperwork. And, of course, Detective Hoyts is an action guy, and all he wants to go do is go and get the bad guys. And so they're not the best pairing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But one day, Detective Gamble mentions how he's been tracking down this billionaire who has said he has a bunch of construction contracts in the city, but it's been red flagged for Detective Gamble because there have never been any scaffolding permits pulled for these contracts, which I think is actually pretty brilliant. So together they actually start following these leads, and it brings them to a British multi-billionaire named Sir David Ershon, played by a guy you really love.
Steve Coogan.
Yeah, who is really funny in this movie, actually.
He is.
I like Steve Coogan. He is a funny guy. I just hated him in Hamlet, too.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. And so now they're starting to investigate this massive white-collar scheme. And the problem is, because there's all this money involved, there's a CEO who's a total bitch who's involved, too. And because there's such high stakes, there's a contract killer who's been hired. There's a whole mercenary team who starts interrupting their investigation as well. And these two just normal cops have to step up to really investigate this case. And throughout the whole movie, one of the reasons why it's so funny is because they really hate each other. And there are so many great lines in this film about Will Ferrell asking Mark Wahlberg, you don't think I'm a real cop, do you? There's just so many good lines. But everything about cop movies are turned on its head, which is why I love this film so much. All of the cliches are there. Detective Gamble's car is a Prius, which is completely different from the two rock star cops from the beginning of the movie who are driving this incredible Charger. Instead, no, he's stuck with a Prius, which at one point gets stolen, and this poor car is subjected to a lot.
Well, here she is. They left her under an overpass for the night.
Did you find anything?
Yeah, we found a lot of stuff. From bodily fluid and hair samples, we determined that a bunch of old homeless dudes had an orgy in the car.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You know what that's called when they do that in there? It's called a soup kitchen. It's pretty rough stuff. Not long after that, a mama raccoon came along and gave birth on the floor.
What about fingerprints? You find any fingerprints?
Nope. Couldn't get a one.
Found a cell phone.
Yeah, that's mine. Any signs of a struggle or spent shells?
No. Believe me, everybody that was in on this orgy was more than willing. In fact, they even left you a note here. Thanks for the F-Shack. Love Dirty Mike and the boys.
And Dirty Mike is played by the director of this movie, Adam McKay.
Yes.
I love when directors choose their cameos to be like the creep side characters.
I will say that in the unrated version, they go way too far with trying to be funny with that whole sequence when Dirty Mike shows up.
Yeah, the unrated version is a lot longer. I don't think this movie needs any more time.
Definitely not, no. I only watched the unrated version once, and I will never do it again. It's not as good.
Oh, okay, that's really good to know, because you and I talk about director's cuts and unrated versions all the time, so...
Yes.
And like I said, this movie turns a lot of stereotypes on its head. Every time these cops screw up, they actually do get in trouble. There's that trope of, I broke up with my girlfriend and she became a stripper and Mark Wahlberg's got to go save her. Well, his ex-girlfriend's actually a ballerina. She's not a stripper.
Right, yeah.
And turning in your badge and your gun. And, Will Ferrell gets in trouble and he's got to turn into his gun and he gets a little toy wooden gun in return to practice with. The music they listen to is the Little River Band instead of some hardcore awesome rock stuff.
LRB, Little River Band. I always have Little River Band in my car.
And there's one scene, I love this so much, where Mark Wahlberg jumps and slides down the table just like they do in the action movies, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the table is like the length of a basketball
court. Yeah, it's such a big table.
And it's making fun of that trope. I love it so much. But my favorite of all in this whole movie is when they are subjected to an explosion.
Oh, yes.
Blast them off their feet. They're hurt. Their ears are ringing. And they even say, how do people walk away from that in the movies? It's so accurate because it's true. There's no way you just walk away from an explosion when you're close to it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I was like, how do they do that in the movies? I have internal bleeding.
I have blood blisters on my hands. So yes, I really love this movie. It is elevated by the supporting cast, including Michael Keaton as their captain.
Unbelievable.
But unfortunately, because he's got a kid in college, Michael Keaton's got to have a second job, and it's being a manager at a Bed Bath & Beyond.
I love the introduction of him at Bed Bath & Beyond. It's just so wonderful.
We got a big day out there. Big one. We got a full moon. People are going to be amped. All right? Let's see what we got on hot tips, all right? Whoa. The new bath mats are in. One more thing. We got a serial rapist in Crown Heights. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. That's from my other job. Ignore that. Forget that. Well, don't ignore it. If you live in Crown Heights, walk in pairs.
And the captain also happens to quote TLC lyrics a lot, which is also hilarious and random. So yes, this movie is incredible as a comedy. I love it so, so much. John, what was your recent watch like?
It was as good as it's always been. There are moments in the movie that revert me back to why I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell fan, but they're so few and far between throughout the length of the other guys that I still really like the movie. I'm not an Anchorman fan. I didn't even bother with Anchorman 2. I do like old school. Stranger Than Fiction. Most of Will Ferrell's dramatic work is my favorite. There's a movie called Melinda and Melinda that he's in. He's great in that. Stranger Than Fiction, he's greater than that. I've seen Everything Must Go. I liked that movie. I liked him in it. For whatever reason, this movie just struck a chord with me. And I think it was the opening. Like, it just set this tone of ridiculous. Like these guys jump off the roof because they think they're invincible and they're going to live. And then we meet Will Ferrell's character and Mark Wahlberg's character. Mark Wahlberg is great in comedy. I think he should do more of it. I'm okay with Daddy's Home. Daddy's Home 2, I didn't really like very much either. It's just very hit and miss with me in Will Ferrell movies. I truthfully find Will Ferrell's cameo in Wedding Crashers to be so ridiculously awful and over the top that I was turned off to him for a long time after that. And I know a lot of people think that that's the best. Mom, the meatloaf! It's not that fucking funny. It's really not, in my opinion. I know a lot of people like it. I don't think it's great. Anyway, the other guys, so many great moments in this movie. And I think also, not just because of Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, Michael Keaton, number one, comedy gold in this movie. I'm not a big Rob Riggle fan either, but I liked him in this movie. He's the other cop with Damon Wayans Jr.
Yes.
And Damon Wayans Jr. in this movie is pretty funny. I think my favorite scene of the entire movie is the funeral scene. There's a moment where Damon Wayans, they cut to him when he's laughing. It kills me every time. I love it. And then, of course, they're having this wrestling match, and they're trying to, like, yell at each other, but also be respectful of the funeral. Eva Mendes is good. Like I said, there's moments in this movie that just go off a rail for me. I thought the whole thing with him in college was just a little bit out there.
I agree. I think that's over the top.
Okay. Yeah. And then, of course, the whole thing with him and Eva Mendes at the dinner table where he's screaming at her like he's that character again was just kind of stupid. But
I agree.
The moment... Okay, cool. But the moment when both of them go drinking together and there's this old choir singing behind them and then it's Will Ferrell's turn. I love that
It
moment
was
too.
consensual.
Yeah. I gave my love to Aaron. I love that whole thing is great. So overall, I am a big fan of the movie. I own the movie. I didn't give it away. I have not planned on ever giving it away because it is very entertaining. And even up towards the end is great. Steve Coogan cracks me up in this movie. I love when they're trying to arrest him, and every time they try and arrest him, he offers them tickets to a Broadway show, and they go to the show and like, damn it, he did it again. And so there's a lot of great in this movie, and it's up there with being one of my favorite Will Ferrell movies.
I'm so glad to hear that. And yes, this is an entire joke in this movie that I forgot to mention, which is it's Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, right? Mark Wahlberg is a former Calvin Klein model, and every single hot woman in this movie is attracted to Will Ferrell and thinks he's super hot and hits on him. And so at one point, Will Ferrell invites Mark Wahlberg, his partner, over to dinner at his home to go over the case.
Yes.
And Will Ferrell said,
yeah.
And Will Ferrell says,
Listen, why don't we just go over to my place? We'll talk the case down. We can have a little dinner. You can meet Sheila.
Two cops talking down a case while eating food. All right? It's not dinner.
Fine. And let me apologize in advance, okay, in case my wife acts like a world-class bitch. She's a big old broad, and she likes to wield it.
and it turns out that Detective Gamble's wife, Will Ferrell's wife in this movie, is Eva Mendes.
Yes.
Who's one of the hottest women on earth. And
Very much so.
the whole time...
I've seen her in person, too. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have. I was at the Fahrenheit 9/11 premiere. I was one of the spectators. And she walked by, and I just kind of casually was like, Eva Mendes, love you in Training Day. And she flashed a smile and waved and continued on.
Nice. Yes, she is in Training Day. She also, in real life, is partners with Ryan Gosling, which is a cool connection between our films this week.
Yeah.
And yes, the whole movie, Will Ferrell's talking shit about his wife and saying how ugly she is. And he even asked her at the dinner table, are you going to change? Because you look kind of shitty. And it's like, she's the most beautiful
Don't you talk to her like that.
Bye, Sheila.
Yeah, that whole thing. You're a nice lady. And that's another thing, too. Like, oddly enough, I know it's funny. Will Ferrell is a very homely looking guy. Sorry, Will. I'm sure you're aware of it, and that's why this whole thing happens in this movie for you. Congrats to you. But I just think a lot of the dialogue between he and Eva Mendes just goes a little bit too over the top. And that's just kind of how I feel about it.
I agree, and I think that is a fine line that I think they cross many times in Will Ferrell and Adam McKay movies, and so it's a certain type of comedy, and I agree with you. I definitely am that type of person who doesn't like cringe comedy, who doesn't like secondhand embarrassment type of comedy in general, and so Will Ferrell and Adam McKay are hit and miss for me too. I think less than you, but I'm right there with you.
All right, I gotcha. I love when Hoyts and Gamble sit down at Will Ferrell's house, and he pulls up the laptop and he goes, so I put this little video together. I like to do a little weekend editing. And it's like, Urshan Consortium. And Mark Wahlberg's like, whose voice is that? I don't know why. That moment always kills me, too.
Oh, yeah, I bought the Frontline app for 99 cents. So I can use the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And then at one point, they both get in trouble because it's a classic cop movie, right? They're investigating somebody who's got major connections. And so they get busted down to traffic like they do in every single cop movie, right?
Yep.
But the difference is that Mark Wahlberg's character of Detective Hoyts really loves being in traffic and really doesn't want to restart the case when Will Ferrell comes back to him.
Yeah.
Which I thought was so great. And he's so proud of himself because he's listed as Traffic Enforcer of the Month during this montage.
Yes.
And I love that all of the other Traffic Enforcers of the Month on that big placard were actually members of the movie graphics and locations departments.
Oh, cool. That's neat.
Yeah, I love when they do that, similar to Spirited, a movie, actually Will Ferrell movie that I picked a couple of years ago during Christmas, when the Ghost of Future comes to him and he sees the cemetery and all of their names were members of the crew as well. I love when they put that in movies.
I do too. I really like that.
And like I said, I agree with you about Will Ferrell being pretty hit and miss. The other movies I do like him in, though, are Quiz Lady, that just came out, actually.
Oh, yeah. Never watched. I still haven't watched that one.
Yeah, it came out last year. It has Awkwafina in it and Sandra Oh. It's really good. He's great in it. Spirited, which I picked, as I mentioned.
Yes. Yeah, good movie.
He plays the bad guy in the Lego movie, and he is great in voice acting.
Oh, really? I didn't even put that together. I've seen that movie once or twice. The first one and the second one I like. I like them both.
I like the Lego Batman movie, too.
That is a great one, yeah.
And like you said, he's an old school and Mark Wahlberg, and he reunite in the Daddy's Home movies.
Yes.
I really love the first one.
I only saw it one time, and I remember I laughed, but not enough to want to watch it again, I guess.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And some of the movies of Mark Wahlberg's that I really like, I love Lone Survivor. It's a good book, too.
Oh, that movie, absolutely incredible. Love Lone Survivor.
I love The Fighter.
The Fighter is good. Yes, I like that one too.
I really like Max Payne. I saw it in theaters. I think it's really underrated. It's based off of a video game. It's really dark and has a lot of really cool supernatural elements to it. Mila Kunis is good in it too.
Never saw Max Payne.
It's a fun action movie. I like it a lot.
I should check it out or put it on the list maybe.
Yeah. He's also in Shooter, a movie that is on the list that you haven't seen yet.
I have not.
He and Eva Mendes are both also in We Own the Night, which is also on my list.
Oh, yeah, I never saw that one either.
He plays a cop in that movie, but that's in the 80s in New York, and Robert Duvall and Joaquin Phoenix are in it.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. He's also in The Departed and The Italian Job.
Love him in The Departed, and Italian Job, yeah.
I don't really like Mark Wahlberg as a person in general, but I do like his movies.
I like his movies, too. I actually just watched Deepwater Horizon again the other night, and that movie is damn good. I like that one a lot, too.
Isn't Kurt Russell in that movie?
Kurt Russell is in that movie,
Okay.
yes. I completely forgot that he was.
Nice. Never saw it, but I do know he's in it.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one. It's Peter Berg. They both did Lone Survivor and Mile 22. And
Peter Berg's a
they
great
all-
director.
yeah, he really is.
And Eva Mendes, you'll recognize her from Hitch.
Yeah.
Well,
And the Will Smith Miami music video.
and Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh my gosh, that's right. She is in Too Fast, Too Furious.
She's an undercover
Wow.
cop investigating Cole Hauser, who's ripped
Yeah.
from Yellowstone. All right. Well, Dirty Mike wrote and directed this film, also known as Adam McKay. He wrote and directed Anchorman 1 and 2, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers.
Oh yeah, those are other two movies that I do not like. I never finished Talladega Nights, and I think Step Brothers is unbelievably awful.
I get it. No, that is a very specific type of comedy that I can only
Yeah.
watch every once in a while. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I do think
I-
they're really
I-
funny, but I don't watch them all the time.
I love John C. Reilly. Step
Okay.
Brothers did not do it for me.
That's fair. Do you know that Adam McKay also wrote the screenplay to Ant-Man?
Ha! No way.
Do you know who also wrote the screenplay to Ant-Man? Is Edgar Wright.
Shane Black. Oh wow, no way.
Yeah.
That's an odd pairing. I had no idea. I actually liked the first Ant-Man.
Yeah, Edgar Wright from Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I
Yeah.
did not know that at all.
Me either. And Adam McKay also wrote and directed The Big Short, which is my favorite movie of his.
I really like The Big Short.
It's an incredible film. Also stars Ryan Gosling, which is funny.
Yes.
And he wrote and directed Vice and Don't Look Up.
Vice was good. Don't Look Up was trash.
It was terrible. I hated
Don't Look
that
Up was
film
awful. Yeah,
so
that movie
much.
really sucked.
so much. But Adam McKay is really into white-collar crimes, financial crimes, and also the wealth distribution problems in this country. And during the credits of this film, there's some incredible infographics about Ponzi schemes that you should definitely read and watch while the credits run in this movie.
It's pretty wild.
Really informative and angering.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you can see from all of the credits that I just listed, Adam McKay and Will Ferrell have worked together a whole bunch of times, right?
Yes, they have.
Well, their very first project together was the Landlord skit for that Funny or Die project that launched Funny or Die and made it super famous.
Yeah, didn't think that was funny either.
Okay, that I will disagree with.
Although I did spend a
Pearl's
year
adorable.
of working with Funny or Die as an
you
assistant director, which was amazing.
Should really not trash talk your former employer.
He didn't sign my checks.
No, I'm kidding.
I thought maybe one day I would see him in the office, but I never did. Never once.
Bummer.
Yeah, it was a little bummer.
And I totally forgot to mention that the narrator of this movie is Ice-T.
Oh, is it Ice-T? Yes. Oh, wow. I had no idea.
An uncredited role, he just showed up and decided to narrate, which is great.
That's awesome.
Yes. The last piece of this movie that I want to talk about is towards the beginning of the film when Gamble and Hoyts are still really button heads, and Hoyts especially really hates Detective Gamble because he's such a magoo. There's this whole argument about Mark Wahlberg saying, if I was a lion and you were a tuna, I would actually even swim out into the ocean and eat you because I hate you so much. And Will Ferrell has this response about being a tuna that just goes on for a couple minutes. And it's so funny and so detailed and so ridiculous. And of course, Will Ferrell completely improvised it.
Oh, did he really?
Yes.
That's pretty good. I actually really like that moment too. Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
So even though this was a cop movie, I was shocked to learn that the budget for The Other Guys was $100 million.
Good Lord.
This is one of
Wow.
the times where you can call out the budget of my film being too much.
That's crazy.
I don't know where it went. I'm assuming, well, Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg definitely demanded $20 million. So take that right
so
off the
that's
bat.
$40
right?
million, so $60 million left.
Probably had to give several million to Samuel L. Jackson and a little less to The Rock because it was 2010, but not much.
Probably.
But definitely $5 million to Samuel L. Jackson for his 6 minutes of film.
Jeez.
There's a lot of location shootings. There is some pretty
Yeah.
great action, but yeah, $100 million really blew me away.
That is mind-boggling. $100 million for that movie.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it only made $119 million in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And worldwide, it made $170 million. So both of our movies did not do well at the
Wow.
box office this week.
No, they did not.
But the nice thing is my movie is also streaming right now on Hulu.
Wonderful.
So that is The Other Guys, movie that came out in 2010. I would argue that The Other Guys is funnier than The Nice Guys, but The Nice Guys has a better script. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think they both have strengths in their own ways, and they're both really great films.
Yeah, I don't know if I would think The Other Guys is funnier, honestly. I think,
Oh,
Well,
I would argue
we-
that for sure.
well, we can argue it all you'd like. I just, there's too much in The Other Guys that goes too far, and there's a lot of lull in The Other Guys in certain moments, whereas The Nice Guys just kind of hits you in the face right away and doesn't stop with the comedy and the craziness.
Wow.
But
I think
again,
the
you know,
exact opposite. I think there are a lot of
Oh.
lulls of comedy in The Nice Guys. I
Huh.
remember laughing at specific points in the movie, but not consistently. But for The Other Guys, I laugh from start to finish.
Well, again, that's where we differ, because like I said, there's a lot of the movie that I feel like they just went way too long with, and
Yeah.
that's all. That's all.
It's so funny to me how there are a lot of comedians, especially comedic directors and writers, who
Yeah.
just do a joke to death. Like that scene with Eva Mendes' mother, I thought was funny
Yeah.
at first, and then it just went way too long, right?
It went way too long.
Yeah.
I never actually thought it was funny to begin with, but yeah, it just continually goes on.
But otherwise, a really great movie, really hilarious. There are a lot of fantastic comedic elements to it. I'm really glad you enjoyed your time with it.
As am I.
All right. Well, would you watch The Nice Guys with your grandma?
No, I don't think I would.
Yeah.
That's a big no for grandma.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch it with my grandmas either. A lot of nudity in it.
Yes. Envy, would you watch The Other Guys with your grandmother?
No, because I don't think it's their style of humor.
Sure. Yeah, I get you.
But my sister loves this film. Actually, a couple of my sisters love this film.
There you go.
I think for both movies, it's 15 or 16 and above.
Yeah, I mean, mine's pretty hard. I would say 17. I would have to
Wow.
go with the restricted age group on mine.
That, I think, is the first time in 153 episodes that you've suggested an older age than me.
I think you're right. Yes. Maybe not. I don't know. Did I for Running Scared too? Because Running Scared with Paul Walker's fucked up too.
No, I said like 19 years old above for that
Okay,
movie.
yeah, there we go. So then, yeah, I would have agreed with you on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's true. Very cool.
Awesome.
It happens.
Apparently it does. Wow. All right, so anybody 17 and above, we think you'd enjoy these films.
Absolutely.
All right, well, those are our buddy cop comedy picks this week. We hope you enjoy those films, are big fans of them, or are willing to now give them a chance. And John, do you want to tell our audience what we're doing next week?
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. We're jumping into Sandra Bullock romantic comedies.
I cannot believe it's taken us this long to do this topic.
That's right. We have done 2 Sandra Bullock movies. Actually, you've done 2 Sandra Bullock movies with The Heat and While You Were Sleeping. So I guess this will be my first time jumping into a Sandra Bullock movie.
Ooh, I've actually done more than that because I also picked Practical Magic before, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
But none of those are
Well,
her
cool.
classic rom-coms except for While You Were Sleeping.
Very true. So why don't you tell everybody what you picked for Sandra Bullock next week?
I picked my all-time favorite Sandra Bullock performance. I love this movie so much. I've loved it since it came out. This is Miss Congeniality.
Great movie.
And if you want to watch it, it's currently streaming on Netflix.
Sounds good to me.
And what Sandra Bullock rom-com did you pick?
I picked a movie from 2009 starring Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. This is The Proposal, everybody, which is currently streaming on Hulu and Disney Plus, since Disney Plus and Hulu are in cahoots now.
Best thing about that movie is Betty White.
That's right. Betty White is also in that film. It's going to be a great revisit.
I'm looking forward to next week.
Me too. It's going to be fun.
We hope you join us then. Please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts. It's really important, and we deeply appreciate it. So please keep those reviews coming. And if anybody's still talking about Oscars or Oscar winners, go ahead and send them our way and share our Oscars recap episode with them so they can start listening to our podcast too. And as always, we love to end the episode with film is a form of art, and in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think
Step Brothers is a good movie.
Oh, I'm not going to argue. I think it's funny, but I'm not going to argue with you. It's the Catalina wine mixer.
Not funny. It's not funny.
All right, fine. Every opinion is valid.
Yeah, exactly. And mine is more valid than everybody else's in this regard.
Well, audience, why don't you go
I know,
ahead
I'm going to get a lot of shit for it, and I'm ready for it. I'm
let
ready.
us know who's right in this situation, please.
Spoiler alert, it's me.
At Movies You Miss Pod on all social media, folks. Back me up on this.
Yeah.
All right, until next week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.